the question is, why is he doing it? And ostensibly, it's for several reasons. He has a strong belief that his allies are taking advantage of him, and that he will, of course, put America first. I mean, that's a repeated refrain that we hear from him, and of course, everyone around the world has heard from him. But putting America first doesn't mean necessarily hurting other countries. But what he wants to do is bring back employment, particularly for blue collar workers, into the states, build up their industry, make America less dependent on external supply chains, create energy independence, and so on. But the problem is not with Canada. It's more with China that
Okay.
he actually imposed a 10% tariff on at the same time.
Okay, so what, in your view, can be the landing zone between US and Canada in particular? In his rather long message on Truth Social, there's a lot of capital letters there, but he's basically saying Canada, Mexico, and China, he says, owes $36 trillion, and we're not going to be the stupid country any longer. Make your product in the USA and there'll be no tariffs. Why should the United States lose trillions of dollars in subsidizing other countries? And why should these other countries pay a small fraction of the cost of what USA citizens pay for drugs and pharmaceuticals, for example? I mean,
well, none of this applies to Canada. It's totally irrelevant. As I said, it's a $45 billion deficit, which is really a surplus if you take oil and gas. He has a couple of beefs, legitimate beefs actually, with Canada. For one thing, we haven't been doing our part in building up our military. We're at about 1.5% of GDP. We should get to the NATO minimum of 2%. This has been a sore point for a long time. And frankly, he's right. And it's in our national interest to build up our military, to defend the Arctic and our sovereignty, and not to be totally under the American umbrella. That's one thing. He complains also about illegal immigrants and fentanyl, a very dangerous drug coming from Canada. Well, it's minuscule compared to what's coming from Mexico, but it's still an issue, and we have to secure the border. But frankly, that's in our national interest also, because a lot of illegal guns are coming in to Canada, and there's going to be an onslaught of illegal immigrants trying to get into Canada once he ups the deportation order. So we have some things we can do. But the trade relationship is not a problem for the United States. It's an advantage.
okay. What goes through the minds of Canadians when they hear Donald Trump say things like Canada should become the 51st state of America? How does a statement like that go down with Canadians such as yourself?
Well, the first reaction was just to laugh at it. He makes a lot of statements, and he's into hyperbole. But usually, there's a grain of well, truth. I mean, from his perspective, behind it. Then, when he kept repeating it, it became. It was viewed as deeply insulting, because the Canadians don't want to lose their independence, even to our close, friendly, and wealthy neighbor, who might take us out at a premium to our terribly discounted dollar, which is down, 40%. Is he actually serious about weakening us economically so much that we'll cry uncle and give up our independence? Well, we're not going to do that. And he, in response to a question, said he's not going to invade, which is a good thing, because we're in no position to defend ourselves militarily. But will he use the economic levers to weaken us? His end game may be just to get a completely a complete free trade agreement, an economic union with Canada. Well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
But this sort of stuff is resented, and our backs are getting up.
Okay.
We're very polite people, but we're getting a little irritated, I should say.
And just briefly, because we're squeezed on time, Joe, Mark Carney, who may or may not be the next Canadian Prime Minister after the elections, has said on X that Canada will not bow down to a bully, and that the US are illegal tariffs that are imposed by Donald Trump. Do you think that this free trade agreement you've just mentioned, that could be the answer to everyone's problems, do you think that Mark Carney could deliver that with someone like Donald Trump? How do you think the two of them will get along?
Well, first of all, I'm a conservative, so you should take my comments, I guess, with that in
Of
mind.
course.
He's running for leadership of the Liberal Party, and taking on Trump at this moment is, of course, precisely the sort of thing that any Canadian politician would do. Whether he's and he's going to win, by the way, the Liberal leadership by all accounts. But the Conservative Party is somewhere between 18 and 21 points ahead. I mean, if the election were held based on those polls, we would be a massive Conservative victory. But he's hoping to eat into that, and he's going to have to somehow separate himself from the disastrous economic track record of the current prime minister
Okay.
who just resigned, and he's also a climate alarmist and would be hostile to our natural resources. So, I don't think he's the one, and I hope Canadians agree.